Hello, and welcome to the episode of Todd Talks. When Todd Talks, people listen. That's black speech for hopefully. Pretty sure I got that right. Today, ladies and gentlemen, we are here to talk about a very fun little death battle between Sauron of Lord of the Rings and the Lich King of World of Warcraft. I'm really loving this season overall because they are bringing in so many new franchises, and everyone's keeps saying, stop doing Marvel versus DC matchups. Let's bring in all the new franchises. And just in the last few episodes alone, we've had plenty of new franchises at our door. And here's another example of it because we're taking a book series and a MMO, which is a first for both, I think. I know MMOs haven't been touched. I mean, the books are relative. Harry Potter, I guess Harry Potter was there. Okay, but still, that's still very impressive. So, this is okay. I want to show you my preparation for this one. All right, I don't usually do this part, but I was so concerned about the lore, especially after watching both preview videos, that I decided I needed to write down all the salient elements of both characters, and yeah, that's how dedicated I am for this. All right. Uh, so when I look down, it's because I have my notes right here, and I want to make sure I get this all done. All right. All right. So let's start off with Sauron. Oh wait, one more thing. I was criticized on a death battle video recently because I said I needed to brush up on my Lord of the Rings lore, and he goes, "Oh," and this guy went, "First lesson, it's called Token lore, not Lord of the Rings." Don't be a dick. All right. Most people refer to it as Lord of the Rings. Okay. Sheesh. Anyway, so Sauron was not born Sauron. He was actually named Myron. He was one of the Maya or Maiar, who were the lesser angels of the universe. You saw the preview video. The gods sung a song, but one of them, Melkor, aka Morgoth, was intent on corrupting things. A hint of everything to come. And as Morgoth, waged war against the various entities of this world, he corrupted many of the Maya or Maiar, however you want to say it. It's technically said both ways. To join his side, and one of them was Myron. Now, Myron originally was a skilled craftsman and a believer in order and perfection above everything else, not unlike a craftsman who wants the perfect tool after it's been forged. The problem was that his desire to have such things made him perfectly susceptible to Morgoth, and that would lead to him becoming one of Morgoth's most powerful generals. He's technically led his lieutenant in some of the wars that he fought, including let's see, what's this one? Battle of the Powers. See, I had to write this all down. This was when Morgoth was still in charge, because at the time Sauron, after he took his new name, was fine-ish with being under Morgoth's reign. But over time, when he realized, things were going wrong, he would abandon certain battles. He even tried to get a pardon from the elves after they defeated Morgoth. And then after he didn't want to go to the utter west because he knew he would be punished eternally for that, so he fled to Middle Earth. That won't go wrong at all for anyone. No, definitely not. Here's a key thing you have to remember. With Tolkien, J.R.R. Tolkien, he wrote stories that covered like eras. All right, we're talking like thousands and thousands of years. Sauron, as we see in the Lord of the Rings trilogy, is very much a behind the scenes figure, right? He's there, he's the threat, but you don't really know. Like, it's never explained outside of the Forging of the Rings, which even then was dumbed down for the movie. Like who he is, what he is, and why he matters. Well, he matters because he's been around a freaking long time. All right, he's been around since basically the creation of this world, and over the course of many ages, like the first age, second age, and the third age, he's been there. He's been there doing his thing, corrupting people, raising armies, and amassing power for himself. And even though he has been defeated multiple times, he finds a way to keep coming back. All right. Again, a sign of things, a foreshadowing of everything to come. So the key thing I want some of the key points I want to note here for Sauron is that because of his Maiar nature, or heritage, I should say, he is incredibly powerful in multiple things, incredibly skilled in multiple things. For example, he was the one who helped forge the rings of power, all of them. All right, and this ties into his deception ability, but I'll get to that later. He presented himself to Celebrimor, who you might remember from the Shadow of Mordor, Shadow of War games. uh, that guy crafted all the rings, but it was Sauron who gave the idea. Hey, let's turn everything into a ring. Let's make these rings of power, and unlike the show you probably saw on Amazon Prime. Yeah, that was him who inspired all of that, and that he could do that because he was a skilled craftsman. And then he personally made the one ring in the fires of Mount Doom that was accurate in the movies, um, so that he could bind them all. But it goes beyond that. He was trained by the great craftsman at the time in was it Aure, I believe it was. I didn't write that one down. He also was a master of magic and sorcery, and that would lead to him later becoming the necromancer, which I'll get to. And over time, he harnessed over long periods of time. He harnessed his ability to corrupt, to manipulate, and to use his abilities to do basically whatever he wanted, except when at times plot armor. Ah. Anyway, so for example, his abilities are so great that he could do shape shifting. As you saw in the preview video, he could become a elf. He could look like a human. He could look like a werewolf. He could look like a vampire. Now you might be saying, like, why are they saying vampire? Well, technically speaking, werewolves exist in the Lord of the Rings, or sorry, in Tolkien mythology, but vampires don't. All right, there is actually there's beings called the wolfhounds, and they can shapeshift into werewolves. And one of them, named Juan, was the greatest of them, and he actually defeated Sauron when he himself transformed into a werewolf. Because it was actually stated that Juan could not be beaten by anyone who wasn't a greater werewolf than himself. So, lore. But over time, Sauron would amass armies on his own once Morgoth was out of the way, and the elves, multiple versions of them, and men, multiple versions of them, would have to come together to try and defeat him. And it worked more times than not. There was one fight where it was called the War of Elves and Sauron, where the elves amassed their power and would defeat Sauron, like, almost with ease. And this was with the One Ring. Actually, no, I take that back. That wasn't the wrong One Ring. That was before the One Ring. But even every time Sauron was destroyed, he wasn't dead, because his spirit, his essence, because he's an angelic being, would carry on. And this would eventually lead him to reamassing his power over like 1,000 years, and eventually creating the rings and the One Ring to rule them all. And the reason for that was because through his manipulation of Celebrimor and the other elves, he got them to create these rings that could be potentially possessed by the One Ring. If you're wondering why that never really worked, it's all about the details, and I'll very lightly go over them. Basically, the One Ring was meant to be like the top of a deck of cards, or a house of cards. Okay, so I'm at the top, right? The problem was that when the elves found out what he did and how they could manipulate his One Ring, could manipulate all 16 rings, 3 for the elves, 7 for the dwarves, 9. No, hold on. There was 16 rings. It's not 9 for men. Whatever. There was a lot of rings. Okay, there was a lot of rings. It was 7 for the dwarves and 9 for the men, and then the 3 he never got. Right. So the problem was that the elves took off the rings. You can't possess what's not being used. The dwarves were hardier stock, because of course they were, and then the men were easily corrupted, because of course they were. So that's why only the Nazgûl went to him. The dwarven rings were never really a factor, especially in the main trilogy, and the elves never really used their rings outside of one instance, which I'll get to, and because they knew that the One Ring could corrupt it. So the plan almost worked. But again, over time, with the power of the One Ring, Sauron would take many forms and do his best to overcome all the obstacles in his way. And while he was never the guy to go and like fight the armies himself, he could still do it, as they noted in the Death Battle preview. He's basically a force of nature. He's a necromancer. He's a master of magic and has defeated powerful magical beings like elves in the past. In the final battle, right before the Lord of the Rings trilogy, he uh, okay, I guess I gotta rephrase this. In the final battle that led to, well, it was well before the event of the Hobbit. I guess I should be more clear on that. Before he lost the ring, he was able to defeat two powerful and legendary warriors, one elf and one man, and that's when Isildur came in and cut off his finger, which had the one ring on it. Sauron didn't die; he loomed over Mordor because the ring is is Sauron. Like that's just the easiest way of saying it. He is Sauron. It is Sauron's will, his power, his drive. It is the thing that basically ties him to this world. That's why they were so desperate to destroy the ring. Because if Sauron got the ring again, he could reform his power and his body and basically wipe them all out. And that would be bad. So naturally, they couldn't have that happen. And that's why the ring is such a corruptive influence for Isildur, for Boromir. It even affected the elves like Elrond and Galadriel. Remember, all shall worship me, all shall love me and despair. Now that scene freaked me out as a kid. I was like, why does she look so freaky? So that's why the ring is so important. It did enhance Sauron's powers, although it's a bit vague, something that Tolkien is very well known for, and but it did enhance his powers. It made it so that he could wipe out whole armies on his own if they weren't to a higher level in caliber. Now, the problem is that due to Tolkien's writings in both the Silmarillion and the Hobbit and Lord of the Rings and his various other letters, he was a bit vague about what Sauron could do. Sauron was mentioned. It's not like in George R. Martin and how in some of his books he has like little details like, oh yeah, this person died this way, and you kind of have to fill in the gaps yourself. It's the same principle. I'm watching House of the Dragon. It's actually not that bad. We definitely got to get a Game of Thrones character in Death Battle eventually. My bet is still Jon Snow. I want him versus Aragorn. Where was I? Oh yeah. So Sauron's powers and like what he's actually able to do can only be lightly interpreted, as in like we know what he's done. Again, blame Tolkien for that, but we know he's beaten legendary warriors with both magic and might. We know he can shapeshift. His body can be like literally melted away, and he can just become a force of nature, which is how he was in The Hobbit with the Necromancer. He raised armies as basically a shadow of his former self. This part cannot be understated enough. In both The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings, he was at a fraction of his true power. A fraction. Okay? He in both of those 4 books or movies or how you wanted to talk about them, he didn't have the One Ring, and he was at a fraction of his power. When he was at his peak, he was legendary. It took the best of that world with the blessings of some of the higher ups to defeat him at times, or it took whole armies to defeat him. That's how powerful he is. And if you still think, well, but he got sliced in the finger, yeah, but that was at his fraction of his power. That was, I believe, it was only a little while after he had reformed his body. All right, he reforms his body a lot. It takes a long time, but he'll do it. And if he got the ring back, he would have been able to regain his power to a higher level than anything that was on the planet at the time. Again, I saw someone saying about the Lich King and Sauron. They only die because of plot. Like they have to lose, otherwise they are these unstoppable forces of evil, right? But here's the real thing you need for power scaling, all right? Which I know Death Battle doesn't like to do, but we need to have comparisons of power. All right. One of Sauron's greatest allies was Saruman the White, who was greater than Gandalf the Grey, and then eventually equal to Gandalf the White. All right. Both of them could not have defeated Sauron on their own, and they are Maiar. That is never explained in the movies, but they are both Maiar. They are some incredibly powerful, angelic beings. All right, that's why they're able to wield magic to certain levels. Their abilities pale in comparison to what Sauron was at his peak, or even at his weakened state, which is why Sauron was more than fine to be corrupted by him and join his forces. All right, that's why Elrond was freaking out when he was like, if Saruman is turned, then our list of allies grows thin. They lost the White Wizard, and Gandalf had to die to become the White Wizard, and even he was afraid of uh, the power of the ring and Sauron, and Gandalf refused to wield it. Remember, he's like, do not tempt me. Through me that power would destroy. That's arguably Sauron's greatest gift. He's a corrupter. He tricks elves, men, wizards, monsters, anything. He can corrupt just about anyone and trick them into doing what he wants, including the elves to make the rings of power, men to become the Nazgul, and so on and so forth. Even hobbits, beautiful hobbits with their beautiful souls, beautiful souled hobbits, which is why they could endure the ring for so long, eventually become corrupted by the ring. That's just I sounded so creepy right there when I said beautiful hobbits, didn't I? Ugh, didn't mean that. My bad. They're not gay, they're hobbits. Clerks reference. That was Clerks, right? Anyway, so how do you kill Sauron? Well, that's the problem. You kind of don't. All right. The only way you can destroy Sauron is by getting rid of the One Ring, because again, his will, his spirit, his essence is in the One Ring, and the One Ring can only be killed in the fires of Mount Doom. It's stated by Tolkien that it can be unmade, but only by a craftsman greater than Sauron. And Sauron, once again, was trained by one of the greatest smiths of his era, his people, whatever you want to call it. All right, so unless you got something to kill the One Ring, you ain't killing Sauron. It might take him a while to come back, but you can't kill Sauron. Okay? I think my camera's acting up. I do apologize if that's the case. All right, now we will switch to our second entrant, the Lich King. Now, this is a complicated one, too. This is why I had to write all the notes. All right. So this all starts. I'm going to have to read this, like almost verbatim. All right, this all starts with the Demon King kill Jaden. First of all, really? Kill Jaden? Oh my gosh. Who created the Lich King via Ner'zhul, who was trying to escape the planet of Draenor, and the Demon King caught him first, and he decided, I'm going to make you basically my undead warrior of death. Undead, yeah, that works. Undead warrior of death. So what he did was he trapped his spirit, his soul, into an icy throne and the sword known as Frostmourne. So he sent him to Azeroth with a very specific goal. He was going to raid and raise the planet, or the, however you want to call it, the realm. There we go. Realm's a good word. The realm, so that it could be ready for the Burning Legion, which, if you recall, was the second expansion pack in World of Warcraft. Lich King was the third, and arguably the best. Probably was the best. Because didn't everything go downhill after the Wrath of Lich King? I never played, but I heard things. Okay, I heard things. Don't get me started on Cataclysm and the what was that, Warlords of Draenor or something like that. Anyway, so he was sent to Azeroth to raise an undead army via the plague, and basically raise these undead legion to be ready for the Burning Legion, so that Kill Jaden could do what he wanted. So this led to events like the War of the Spider, which he won. All right, and this was all Ner'zhul. Okay, we haven't even gotten to that other guy yet. Enter Prince Althas Menethil. Again, I apologize for butchering some of these names. I only watched the preview once. So Althas was the prince of the realm that that Ner'zhul was trying to conquer via the plague. All right, it was like Northrend was where the Lich King was on the Frozen Throne, and then right next to him was another kingdom called, started with an L. I don't remember, but Prince Althas was tasked with stopping this horde of the undead. It didn't go well. Okay, this is a warrior who was like the best in the realm, but against the undead, which just kept happening and kept coming, you can only do so much. And even though his people were immune to the plague, if they died, their bodies could be resurrected. And so it was just an unending horde, not the horde, a horde of undead to, sweep the land and take everything over, which is what Nurzal and Jaden wanted, so that the Burning Legion could do their thing. So eventually, Althas had let's just call it a crisis of conscience, and he turned to the dark side. Basically, he decided to start killing people so that they couldn't be resurrected, which technically doesn't work, but they did enough to make it work, I suppose. And then Nurzal, through his own corruption, was sent Frostmourne, the sword, to a place where Althas and his dwarven friend found it. And the moment that he took the sword, he became a Death Knight. He did not become the Lich King. He became a Death Knight. Again, we're still getting into the bulk of the story here. All right. So once he took the sword, he became a Death Knight to the Lich King, who again was still on the Frozen Throne. And through Prince Althas, he not only had this powerful, let's call him a revenant, of a being to lead the undead hordes against the Alliance and all the others of the realm, he was able to start conquering. One problem: Nurzal was so desperate to, be free of Kil'jaeden, which Temli was at the time, that he didn't mind disrupting the plan of the Burning Legion and everything else. And this led to various things going on, and Nurzal's throne, the Frozen Throne, being attacked by a magically addicted being. I don't even want to try and dig into that one. Because at the time, the only way to stop the Lich King, not Althas, the Lich King, was through the Frozen Throne. If you destroy the Frozen Throne, he could be killed. One problem: he had just enough power to bring Althas back to Northrend, where he could. I'm sorry if you can hear that. We're just construction going on apparently. He brought Althas back to Northrend, and after fighting that magically addicted Iliath or something like that, the spirit of Nurzal and Althas merged when, out of the Frozen Throne, Althas put on the Lich King armor. Because remember, he was trapped in the armor and the sword in the Frozen Throne. Again, it's really complicated. But they eventually fused, and they became one Lich King. Or did they? This is where it gets even weirder. Because after fusing their spirits, they did nothing. I know nothing. I know nothing. I'm kidding. I appreciate you got that reference though. So they fused together, and then as they were, let's call it, in their resting power phase, Althas decided, in all of his corruption, that the only person worthy of the Lich King was him. The power, the title, everything. So he killed basically the two spirits that rested in there, including Nurzal, so he could become the one true Lich King. Fast forward decades, and he decided, hey, I'm going to start causing a bit of havoc again. Okay? And he was so good at this that even some of the mightiest warriors of the realm could not stop him. In one attack before the events of the MMORPG, the Lich King was like beset on by warriors, and he just blasts them away. That's power, ladies and gentlemen. Just blast them away. And it took the rising of heroes like, I'm trying to get his name right, Tyrion Fordring, to create multiple factions to try and stop the Lich King. And even then it wasn't that easy, because this guy plays the long game. He intentionally wanted Tyrion to raise an army to come to Northrend to storm his castle so he could kill them and then resurrect them and have an undead army of unstoppable warriors. That's how long this guy thinks, all right? He wants you to come to him so he can kill you and then resurrect you. Yeah, that's power. And then if you are to fight him actually in the game, he has an incredible amount of abilities. If you saw the preview, which looks awesome, you see how big they're going to go with this, all right? He can teleport, apparently. He can harvest your soul over time. He can summon the undead, because he too is a necromancer. He can freeze you solid. He's repeatedly frozen people in ice, including Tyrion at one point, who had to get freed by a blessing from the light. Kid you not. And just making sure I didn't miss anything. Uh, he can heal himself. He can through his father's spirit, no less. Yeah, his father's spirit is also in the sword. Because he killed his father. Because of course he did. I did mention. I forgot that. Yeah, he killed his father after being possessed. Oops. Bad son. Bad. So, yeah, it's he's very, very powerful. In fact, his boss fight is multiple phases, and he gets stronger as the phases go on. At one point, he gets 900% damage boost. 900%. And then 150% attack speed boost. All right. I'm trying not to miss anything. So, how do you defeat him in the game? Or in the lore and in the game? In the game, you need a pretty good raiding party. I'm talking tanks, I'm talking healers. All right, you need to organize and not go Leroy Jenkins on anybody. Kid. Actually, don't go Leroy Jenkins. I'll kill you. Apparently, you can solo the Lich King though, so take that as you will. In the lore, here's what happened. Tyrion, after getting frozen in ice, freed by the light, used his weapon of Ashbringer, great name, to destroy Frostmourne, which the Lich King did not know was possible, and because he was totally shocked by it. After the sword was destroyed, the spirits of the blade, including his own father, held the Lich King in place, and then the undead warriors that he wanted to resurrect to control actually did get resurrected, and then they killed the Lich King. Or did they? Here's the problem. There's the Lich King technically didn't die. Yeah. You ready for this weirdness? Not unlike certain other characters in history, if the Lich King was to die, someone had to take his place. There had to be someone on the Ice Throne, because if there wasn't, then the undead hordes would not be controlled. So a maimed individual named Balthor, I think it was, something like that, he took the mantle and did his best to contain the undead hordes in Northrend so that nothing would happen. Problem. The former leader of the Horde, Sylvana, she decided, you know what, I'm just going to kill you anyway. So he thinks she's going to take the Lich King power for herself. No. She decides, I'm just going to destroy the Helm, which destroys the Lich King and opens a portal to the Shadowlands, which I'm not going to get into. So to defeat the Lich King, you have to destroy a sword, destroy the person wielding the possession, and then apparently destroy all the armor. Good luck with that. Have your raiding party ready for that, ladies and gentlemen. All right, 28 minutes. That one took a while. I apologize for that. I know Sauron took a bit. Again, research. My gosh. All right, so who wins in a fight between Sauron and the Lich King? I actually had to, do some deep research on this, not just for the backstory, because their powers at times are vague. I mean, I had to look up the actual raid battle against the Lich King to figure out what actual attacks he has, because it wasn't in the wiki. So, in terms of power, I believe Sauron has it, because his power is rooted not in just his I don't want to say heritage, species, it's called species, as a Maiar, but the One Ring itself. You can destroy his body and he's going to be fine. All right? Even if you take the One Ring, he's going to be corrupting you, and then he can try and get the One Ring for himself, which is something he's incredibly capable of doing. And remember, we're talking about peak power Sauron, all right? Not the one we saw in Lord of the Rings or The Hobbit where he was at a fraction. We're talking about full power Sauron, who it took armies to go and defeat, and even then, he still couldn't die. He couldn't die. It was hard to kill before the One Ring. In terms of overall abilities, I mean, the Lich King has a lot, but Sauron's a master of magic and weapons, and again, he's defeated legendary warriors from elves and men, which technically the Lich King is a man because he is Alathos. He is not a god. Okay, we gotta make that clear. The Lich King is not a god. he is a being that was fueled by souls, but that just makes him more or less a vampire, a soul vampire, but a vampire nonetheless. And even then, it took relatively basic people. I don't want to say basic. It didn't take too much for him to get defeated when the right people came around, like Tyrion Frodring or Sylvana. Sylvana beat Balthor Lich King by subduing him with magic, which Sauron would know, and then destroying the helm of Dominion, something like that. It's the helm of something. It's World of Warcraft. It's a helm of something. All right. So yeah, while the Lich King is powerful, absolutely, I think the only advantage that Lich King has is that he is more experienced in direct combat. Direct combat, because as Alphas, he already had a lot of experience. But Sauron has a lot of experience existing and getting his way. All right. The only reason he lost was because he thought, like in the overall, like at the Lord of the Rings, the only reason he lost was because he thought that Aragorn had the One Ring and not a Hobbit. He knew about Frodo and the hobbits and that, but he kept picking the wrong one to wield the ring. He thought it was Pippin after he looked at the eye, the orb, and he looked at Aragorn after Aragorn called him out and said, I've got the blade, I can kill you. A reference to the blade that cut off the finger. So Sauron was duped, but he was never beaten outright in terms of direct power and to kill him. Because if it was that easy, then the Valar or the elves or men would have killed him. And here's the other problem. How is the Lich King going to destroy the One Ring? Because as long as the One Ring exists, so does Sauron. Now, you could argue this is like a Hulk situation where it takes him thousands of years to regenerate. The Hulk still dies. Sauron never died until the One Ring is destroyed. And even then, he technically didn't die. All right? His spirit was said to still be existing, and it was sent to the Void to join Morgoth, ironically enough. But he never technically dies. But he was impotent. He could not get his power back after the ring was destroyed because he put everything into that ring. The only way to destroy the One Ring is by unmaking it, as per Tolkien's letters, which Althos was not a smith, nor would he have the ability to do that. And two, you need the fires of Mount Doom. The Lich King is an ice master, not a fire master. And to my knowledge, he does not have any fire attacks, let alone one that could match the power of a dragon or a freaking volcano, an evil volcano, no less. All right, because the ring was fused with magic as well as the fire. So, based on that alone, based on the ring alone, it's easier to kill the Lich King because all you have to do is break his sword, which Sauron could probably do, and break his helm and armor, which Sauron could probably do more easily, I should say. Versus the Lich King, who wouldn't understand that the One Ring is his power, and he can't destroy the ring. And then, if we really want to be evil about it, I have no doubt that Sauron's ring could corrupt Althos, because he's already been corrupted by the original Lich King in, was it Narzal? Yeah, Narzal. And he was willing to kill Narzal to get more power for himself. So he's like Sauron in a younger state. Except Sauron knows this kind of person. He's corrupted men before, and he could do it again. He's a master manipulator. He does illusions. He can trick him in a variety of ways. He's tricked elves, men, dwarves, wizards, everything. He's tricked the highest beings in his realm and got them to do what he wanted. He can do that to Althos. So for this fight, I am picking Sauron to be the Lich King, and hopefully bring my winning streak to 3 in a row, because I really need it. Okay. So with that, I'm ending this episode of Todd Talk. Who do you think is going to win between Sauron and the Lich King? Again, research. Let me know in the comments below. So I thank you for watching. If you made it this far, I know you were listening, and I'll see you around.